Hey everybody, it's Justin from Built, and today we're going to be talking about small shop dust collection / like beginner dust collectors. You know, there's so many videos out there where everybody's putting $10,000 dust collection systems into their shop, and they're talking about, you know, how everything works and how you should be doing your ducting. But for 90% of people, that's too much. It really is. And while we all love stuff with more power, right? And in dust collection, more power is, better. It's really more than most people need. And so I really wanted to do a beginner starter small shop video and have a dust collector that's sized correctly for that space. And so my shop is too big for that. We're going to be traveling to my friend Luke's garage. He has half of a one-car garage. And lucky for him, my friends over at Vevor sent me over a 1 horsepower dust collection system, and it's perfect for his size shop. It's small, compact, very affordable, and surprisingly powerful. And so that's what we're going to get into today. I'll warn you up front, it's a very small build because, of course, it's a very small shop. There's not much to do. But I'm going to try and go over a lot of different basics. I'm going to try and talk to you about a little bit of the science behind it, and really just show you that you don't need a big setup to have very good dust collection for your tools. So let's get into it today on Built. So we're over at my friend Luke's garage. As you saw when we came in, this is only a half of a garage workshop. It is a one-car garage, but he uses the front of it for their 2 motorcycles. And so this is all the space that he has. He has a little bit that you don't see off camera, and he has this wall over here. So this is more what a lot of people have when you're starting off, in your woodworking progression, right? You don't have an entire wood shop that's built out like mine. You have a limited space and you have a certain number of tools to go with. So when we're talking about beginner dust collection, all the other videos that I see out there, it's like, look at my $10,000 dust collector. Well, that's not what you need. That's not what Luke needs. You need something that's smaller and more sized to the space that you have. And so that's when we take a look at this dust collector. Our friends over at Vevor sent us this 1 horsepower dust collector system. This is one of the smallest dust collectors that you're going to see. And really, for this space, that's great. He can't fit a huge unit in here. He can't even go and buy that Harbor Freight unit that stands up because he just doesn't have the space for it. So a small unit like this is going to increase his dust collection capabilities. It's going to be adequate for the amount of tools that he's going to be putting on it, and it's space saving. So the cool things about this small Vevor unit is A, it's cheap, it's very affordable. It can be wall mounted. It has this plate on here that you can easily just screw into a wall stud. It can be put on a shelf just like this, or it even has casters that come with it, so you could put it on the ground and move it around with you based on your usage. So, depending on how you want to use it. So the way we've looked at this space for Luke is we tucked it way up high up here by the ceiling, so it's out of the way. It's not taking up any of his prime space that he can use. And Luke and I are now going to do some work and run some PVC piping down here, and then we'll experiment with some other options going forward. Now you're going to see us use a combination of PVC pipe and flex pipe. The rule of thumb is that you want to use as much PVC or metal ducting as possible, even in a small setup like this, because the more flex pipe you use, the slower the air is going to be. Every single one of these lines on here is a ridge inside that protrudes into the pipe and causes drag on your airflow. And so it's just going to slow your air down. So even though Luke's build is so small, I mean, very small, because it's a very small space, of course, we are trying to jump to PVC pipe whenever possible so that the full amount of that suction power coming off that unit is going to reach his tools. So when we're talking about our piping that comes off of the dust collector unit, you want to stay away from flex pipe at all costs. Flex pipe degrades the speed of the airflow coming off of the unit. And so flex pipe should be looked at as a only when necessary type of thing. You want to use rigid PVC pipe because it's going to facilitate a lot cleaner of an airflow coming off of it. And whenever you're putting some sort of bend in it, you don't want to use a 90 degree, you want to use a combination of 45 degrees. On your flex pipe. So when we're looking at this one right now for loop, we're trying to get it over here to the wall where we're going to have a PVC pipe. And honestly, it looks like we're going to have to use 5 or 6 45 degree elbows in order to get it over here. And that's just too much. So we're going to decide to go with the flex pipe off of here that's going to curve around and hook up to the PVC pipe that's over here. Again, only doing it when you need to, and in this case, we kind of need to. So I wanted to show you guys a cheap trick real quick. When you're going to be mounting PVC to the wall, you can obviously buy the U-shaped clamps at Home Depot or wherever that are going to hold up the pipe and you can screw it into the wall on both sides. If you'd like to go the scrap wood method, a simple way to do this is to take a piece of scrap wood that you can screw to the wall, and you place a zip tie behind it going wide in this scenario. So now when I place the pipe back here again, I'm going to add another zip tie, and it will just zip tie, and it's holding on to the block, and the block is screwed into the wood. And so, it's a very cheap way to kind of keep your pipe in place. We have our PVC pipe mounted, and now we're going to attach the flex hose. We have a whole bunch of flex hose here. When you have to use flex hose, do not use more than you need to use. So in this scenario, we're going to get it pretty tight so that we have the least amount of ridges in this flex pipe possible, and we're going to cut it and attach the two together. While I have this open, I wanted to do a test of wind speed on here. So at every step during this process, we're going to see how much airspeed we're losing through here. So the unit of measure that I'm going to have for this is feet per minute. In my independent testing for one of my other videos that I have, as long as we're staying above 3,000 feet per minute, it is producing adequate suction to be able to take small and large chips all the way back to the unit. Turn that off. So we hit 5,300 feet per minute directly at the unit, which is actually pretty good for this unit. The last phase of bringing this dust collection system down for Luke is that we're going to add on this Y. And at the end of each one, we have a blast gate, and the blast gate controls the airflow. Now you want your blast gates to be as close to the unit as possible, because why have a really long pipe that you're wasting your sucking power on that's not even being used, right? So an abundance of blast gates is fine, although it can become inconvenient at a certain point, so you have to weigh those things. What we're going to be doing is adding this Y onto Luke's system. We're going to clean up this area here. And this downward one is going to have a flex pipe that's coming off of it, and that's going to be like his vacuum system. He can walk around the shop and vacuum up with it. He can hook up other miscellaneous tools that might be in another location of the shop. It's his end-all hose. This one is later going to be hooked up to this pipe and run down this wall. We're not going to do that in this video today because he is reworking some of his storage solutions, and so that'll be a future type of thing for Luke, but I am going to model it for you real quick. For Luke's permanent setup, once he gets all of his tools rearranged and has his construction done, he's going to be using these Y fittings. So he'll have that long piece of PVC pipe running along that back wall. In total, his entire run will be at max 10 feet because that's how long the pipe was, and that's what he intends to use. Now, every time he has a tool, he will cut the pipe and insert this Y connector. Now, this is at a 45-degree angle. It's not at a 90-degree angle like a T shape. That would reduce your airflow. You want this swooping motion, and you want it to, the dust collectors up here, the airflow, it's sucking this way, so you want it to go in this direction. You don't want to be like this, because then it will be sucking it up and have to make a U-turn and go that way. So make sure you're doing it in the direction of the suction. Now, once you have this in on your pipe, so this is his pipe right here and it's intersecting, he needs to put a blast gate. And you want to put this blast gate as close to that pipe as possible. If you put it at the tool and maybe it's another few feet away, you're wasting that sucking capability on pipe that doesn't need to be there. So when it's not in use. is kind of what I'm implying. When this is closed, you would rather only waste this much space as to waste this much space, right? It's kind of common sense-ish. Now, there are different types of blast gates. Some of them only have one pull. This one slides back and forth. So if he's using one of these, he probably has to put a spacer piece first and then the blast gate. Otherwise, it would hit the pipe when it's trying to open and close. One little tip, since I have my blast gate here out, this is one of mine. I take a colored marker and I color green if it's open and I color red if it is closed. And that way, if it's on the other side of my shop and I'm like, where's my suction? I can look over and see, oh, that blast gate's open right now, and go over and close it. So neat little thing that I like to do with mine. All right, so the main part of his system is done. We have the trunk line coming down to a place that's accessible, since we put the Vevor 1 horsepower dust collector up high and it's not accessible. And so what I want to see is, what type of suction are we getting out of a very affordable machine? And then I'm going to go back to my shop and I'm going to compare it to the suction that I'm getting out of my unit. That'll give you a good, range on how powerful this guy is. And so if we turn this one on, and I'm using the full 20-foot flex tube right now, so I'm not even going directly at the source. Open the blast gate. We're at 5,000 foot per minute on this. That is excellent. And I'm very surprised and happy from this unit, because with these smaller units, I didn't expect that much. I have a much bigger unit that does 1,500 CFMs is the rating that it's sold by, and this unit is only a 500 and something CFM unit, and so I figured this isn't really going to do it. But I'm very pleasantly surprised at the numbers that I'm seeing here. He can actually hook up 2 units, I think, at the same time, 2 tools, and have blast gates open and still be running this. And a big part of that is because we're so close to the unit. We're not running this 50 feet down a line. We're not keeping it open on a whole bunch of machines at the same time. It's a very small, compact space, so a small, compact unit can work very well. I will point out one thing, that when you have a unit like this, it's only a 1-bag system. So it's the collection bag and the filter at the same time. And so its power is going to greatly reduce as it starts to fill up with sawdust. So this is something that does have to be changed out regularly. And since Luke put this up in a very precarious position, albeit it helps with the flow of his shop because he just doesn't have that much space, he's going to have to wear a respirator anytime he takes that down, because it's going to be a little bit of a mess. So bear that in mind with your mounting options as well. But overall, I still think for his space, it's a really good option for him to be able to add really good dust collection to his small half-car garage shop. So we're back in my shop with my larger unit, much, much larger, whole contraption, right, compared to what we were doing over at Luke's. Now, mind you, this isn't a super expensive dust collector, but it is a different setup where the dust that is collected ends up in this lower bag, and the filter bag is completely clear for the most part, so that it doesn't impede the suction power. So the one that we're installing over at Luke's, you need to empty frequently because that filter bag will be filling up with dust chips. So that is a big difference between these. Now, this is sold as 3 times as powerful as the Vevor 1 horsepower. So I'm interested to see on my wind speed gauge what the difference is. I will definitely be out front there that this is not the metric that they're sold by, but this is the metric that I'm testing in this video. And so you should be able to see apples to apples type of stuff by continuing with the same metric that I'm using right now. Now, in my setup, if you see right here, I got a whole bunch of electrical tape. Don't use electrical tape. You should be using the aluminum tape that is sold for HVAC units. This stuff, though, tears really easy and it's hard to get off. I'm retooling everything, and I'm going to be putting in a new dust collection system for myself pretty soon. And so I'm playing with stuff, and so I want to be able to take it on and off and play. So that's why I'm not using this right now, because this is more like your permanent solution. So when you do yours, though, make sure you're using this tape at any single joint that you have, okay? So let's go ahead and test the airflow. 5,020. So even though this is a much bigger unit and it's supposed to be 3 times as powerful, at least on this metric of measurement, we're very close. So I have no illusions though in saying that they're the exact same. This one is capable of running my whole duct system and still sucking. By the time I get over to my table saw, I'm still above 3,000, which is what I want. And so it produces adequate suction there. However, it's encouraging more for the Vevor, because even after we hooked up that 20-foot blue extension hose, and these hoses definitely degrade the sucking power, it was still producing very, very well. So I'm excited when I find a very affordable unit that is space-saving and small and checks all the boxes. So I'm excited to be able to show that unit for you guys. So that was my small dust collection video. I know it was a really, really simple setup. You know, I mean, some of you might look at that and say, like, what am I watching a video on this for? But that's actually the point. If you have a small setup, simple. Don't go crazy. Don't add tons of extra stuff. Don't add bends. Don't add curves. Make it very simple. Make it one wall with one pipe hooked up to your tools. You're going to get the most suction power that way. If you go crazy like I am in here, it reduces your airflow. Now, it makes it more convenient so that I have my dust collector hooked up to my table saw that's in the middle of the room. But at the same time, Luke's probably going to get better suction power out of his small setup than I'm going to get out of mine. So take that into consideration. Thank you very much to Vevor. I was very impressed with this unit. I legitimately was surprised. It performed very well. So if you're in a small setup, this is a very good unit for you. It's affordable, it's light, it can be wall mounted, a whole bunch of stuff. So definitely take a look at it. I've linked below, and I have a coupon code for it down there too that they provided me. So if you're interested in picking it up, you can get it for cheaper. Now, from a health perspective, a dust collector is very important, especially if you have a small shop like Luke's, you're working in a tight, confined space. Any dust particulates that you're cutting from is going to get in the air and you're going to breathe it in. So obviously wearing a respirator is important when you're doing stuff, but a dust collector helps with that too. If you didn't notice during the video, I have this giant bruise on my arm, and that's because I went to the hospital this weekend, and that's from the IV. I had a little health scare, I'm fine, but my Apple Watch alerted me and said, go to the hospital. So I did. So in the same way that this is a health device, so is a dust collector. For as cheap as this unit is, you can definitely help increase the air quality in your shop by adequately taking care of all those dust particulates. So I highly recommend, if you're still using a shop vac and you're using these power tools, take a look at one of these affordable dust collectors. It will help increase the air quality in your shop. Now, we're only 2 months old. I'm trying to hit 10,000 subscribers this month, so if you got some good content out of this video, I hope you'll like and subscribe. It really helps me out. And of course, great comments down below. Lots of people leave great tips down there, so make sure you read the comments. As always, stay safe in the shop, and I will see you in the next video.